I am sitting here with Jules Perrault. He is the Global Sales Manager for Nubo. And we're going to be talking about transforming your connected product into a monitor service. So Jules, let's start off again. I know you were up here earlier today, but tell us a little bit about what Nubo does.
Sure. So Nubo is an IoT analytics company. And so in the world of IoT, we focus on the data layer. So our customers are typically manufacturers of appliances. And they start generating a host of IoT sensor-based data. And we help them transform this into value for the company, for their users, for their internal teams.
Okay. So companies come to you, they're like, hey, we have an IoT service, help us better understand what we're getting ourselves into.
That's right, yeah. So I've just built, a connected air conditioner, for example. My users are using it, they're using the application, but I'm also getting a lot of data from this. How can I monetize this data for my clients, for myself? It's quite rich, complex data sets to deal with, and so we've built a platform and data science teams and automated features to quickly turn this raw data into KPIs, into business and actionable insights for our clients.
So are you creating sort of bespoke dashboards for each client, or are you sort of, are there just some general things that you're always going to keep track of? But then how much customization are you doing per client?
Right, so that's a good question. So as much as we can in the platform, we automate things, so kind of out-of-the-box dashboards through our kind of pre-written algorithms. So things like looking at how engaged is a user over time, the whole product life cycle from purchase to connectivity to the day it goes into a box and never used again, to looking at faults and usage and things like that. So things that we can provide out of the box, and then there's other more customizable things like if you want to predict when a specific machine is going to break. This is more of a data science exercise where we're training a model, learning from its failures and faults in the past to predict next time it's going to happen. That's more of a customized. So a bit of both, but of course, the more we can with our out-of-the-box dashboards, we do that for our clients.
Yeah. Okay. So this is sort of it's a relatively new area for companies, right? The idea that they're no longer just going to sell you a product and then you're done.
Right.
You're actually you're helping them establish sort of a product life connection with the consumer, right? It's a two-way dialogue that goes on for the life of the product.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So most of our clients in the past, they were product-driven companies that would sell, again, like an air conditioner, and that's kind of where the relationship ended with the client, is that they sold it and then they kind of live in the dark around what happens. They've added connectivity layer to add functionality to the product they sell. One of the kind of other things that come with this is a constant relationship around, I know how my users are using my product, I know how it's performing, I know when it's going to break. And so this is moving our clients from a product-driven company to a service, very user-generated company. And we're seeing a lot of this impacting revenues of our clients, where they used to have maybe around 80%, 90% of their revenue coming from product sales. And now it's shifting all the way to less than 50% of revenue is coming from product, and a lot of it is coming from service and aftermarket sales that they're able to derive from data.
So that's kind of transforming a company from within, right? So they're creating the product that has a constant communication. You're helping them understand that data, and that data is revealing new revenue opportunities for them, which will cause them to restructure sort of how they approach, like you said, shifting from a product selling to a product relationship.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's definitely not a light-hearted decision it doesn't impact just one team. It's a strategic, we often talk about digital transformation at a large company. We're often a small piece of that bigger picture around completely transforming from product to marketing to services, using data as a way to make decisions and to run their business.
Are companies kind of cognizant of that change that's about to come? Or do they come into you going yeah, we're ready to shift to monitoring this all the time? Or are they more like, oh, really?
I think a lot of companies know they're going in a direction. A lot of them are still at what's the ROI figures, how much money do I need to put in to get what back? And we're still at the early phases of this discussion where companies are discovering this and we're discovering it with them.
Yeah.
So we have some very successful examples of large clients who have done that transformation and seen very positive results. But for sure, a lot of them are in the early phases of trying to discover what they want to do and what they can do, and do they want to be the first ones in the market to do it, or do they want to follow the bigger players?
Yeah.
That'll be still early days.
What's sort of the first step a company needs to take to transform into like a monitor rather than just a product?
Well, the first thing is you need to collect data.
Okay.
Right? So,
and how much data typically? Does it just depend on the product?
Yeah, it'll depend on the product, right? So often what we first do with a client is try to advise them on what data to collect, how often to collect it, how long to store it, because most clients are just collecting everything at, like say every 15 seconds when maybe you only need it every 15 minutes, and you only need, 30% of the data points you collect today are needed for the use cases you want. And so we kind of help re-architect and streamline the data flow.
Yeah.
For it to be ready for analytics, and then from there it's where we come in and our engine runs.
Okay. What are usually the hiccups you find companies encounter as they're trying to move to this monitoring mindset?
I think one of the often a big challenge we face is we'll get, for example, the IT or the CIO group very engaged to start leveraging this data, or one team, but then say we're predicting when a machine is going to break. You need to incorporate this into your service business, right? And in their applications, their processes. So it's, as you said before, it's a very transformational impact. And so getting all teams aligned at a customer of how this is going to impact the business can be a challenge. So it's moving less from a technology discussion, but from a change management and transformation stage. So that's often, I think, a challenge, and getting everyone aligned can be difficult.
What do you think clients or companies need to do? What should they prepare before they come to you? Right? They're like, okay, we're generating all this data. We want to understand it. What should a company who wants to take advantage of all the data they're generating, what should they do before they make that call to you?
I think they need to look at what's the actual business impact it can have, right? So you shouldn't just do analytics for the sake of analytics. You should understand what business questions you're going to solve with our insights. What cost savings or additional revenue you can create. And this is not something we can share numbers from our experience, but this is the only thing that our clients will know internally. And if they identify that opportunity with data, then this is where we can help them. But I think understanding first the actual impact that Nubo can have, or that an analytics strategy can have, is the first step that they need to do internally.
Okay. Are there any verticals or industries that lend themselves to monitoring better than others? Or now that everything's connected, is it anything?
Not anything, right? So monitoring a connected toothbrush might not have the same impact of monitoring a more of an expensive asset that has a significant service component to it. So that's where we find usually most of the monitoring value comes in. So we have a lot of clients in the HVAC space, where we're monitoring the health of assets, the usage, the comfort of customers. The smart home space, where it's a smart home service. So think telcos that offer a smart home package, and they're getting monthly revenue, trying to track the engagement, the likelihood of churn of a home, when a device needs to be switched. Those are the ones where we want to keep a constant kind of touch point with the client. Definitely some devices where a monitored service does not make as much sense.
Yeah. So are you dealing mainly with like B2B? Are you on industrial clients mainly, or are you also on the consumer side, or is there a segment that you're more?
So both. So Nubo works in, and most of our early success came in the consumer space. So smart home devices, kitchen appliances, things like that. We also have a significant business on the industrial side. So working with, industrial valves and agriculture.
Yeah,
equipment.
I would imagine that's like that's where a lot of need is.
For
just
sure.
Monitoring operations within a
Absolutely.
factory or.
Yeah, if you can predict when a industrial boiler is going to break, the reduction in maintenance costs and downtime is very significant. So definitely a lot of business there. On the consumer side, it's often more geared around engagement of a user and their experience with the product. And of course, when there is a service aspect to it, that reducing truck rolls and operation times there is important.
You've talked a lot about sort of predictive maintenance, but are there any other insights that you're really good at gleaning?
Yeah, so churn is a really big one.
Okay.
Right, where, for example, we have one client that they sell a $1,000 kitchen equipment,
Okay.
and the client has 1 month to return that product for free, right? And it's quite a problem at the company is that they incur quite a bit of cost around the return of these devices, and so we've built a model to learn in that first month what are the behaviors and from the product, from the user, with the service that lead us to predict that this user is likely to return the product in the first month. And from these learnings, we're predicting for future users in the first month, okay, these are the ones that are likely to churn, to return it for these reasons, and this is what our client should do to re-engage them and to make sure that they keep the product for longer than 1 month. So churn is a big one, maintenance is a big one. We also do a lot of insights for product teams. So I've built my first product, let me understand usage of it and feature adoption and all these connectivity things so we can create better versions 2, version 3, version 4. And then the last one is a lot of insights for the actual user themselves. So one thing we found is a lot of our clients offer automation features. So say rules and schedules to automate your whole smart home ecosystem. But very little users actually use these features, and so we call them AI agents. So models are learning of the behavior of a user with the service. So say I see that every morning you wake up at 6 a.m. and you turn on the lights, and you come home at 7 p.m. and you turn on the air conditioner and you turn it lower at 11 p.m. Can we find trends in this behavior and then automate it through the app and suggest automation through it? And this keeps clients with the service much, much longer. So another kind of machine learning driven insights that we try to provide.
Gotcha. So as you talk to me a little bit about, well, I'm trying to think of the best way to ask this. So let me start off this way.
Sure.
Are your clients global? Are you working all over the world, or do you specialize in North America, or?
So we're headquartered in Montreal. So probably about 50% of our client base is out of the US and Canada.
Okay.
But then we have clients in Japan and Singapore and around Europe and Australia, India, so quite a global customer base.
And have you noticed, are there anything international, like in terms of geographies and like the insights you gain are different? They're like based on where in the world they are?
It's a good question. So in the smart home space, one thing we've realized or noticed is in the US or Europe, especially in the US, smart home services are very security driven, right? People have large homes.
Yeah.
It's often a trigger to purchase a smart home device is around security, whereas, for example, in Asia, it's a lot more around automation and making my whole life and everything in my home automated.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we've noticed in terms of the insights we provide. I think most companies, wherever they are, they want to learn about engagement of a product and failures and churn and things like that are all important.
So that's interesting in terms of, that's actually a really interesting insight. And I wonder, like on the security space, what kinds of data, what can you glean, what can you interpret from the data, right? Like because we talked about predictive maintenance and churn, but either my alarm is on or off, right? It's either working or it's not working. Right. You'll know when I'm home and when I set it, but I'm trying to think of like what would be useful for a company to know?
Well, there's some things you want to maybe add in terms of the learnings that so if you detect, say for motion sensors in the home and you detect no one's home for a week, you can maybe assume they're on vacation mode. Yeah. But perhaps the security panel has not been turned on, so that's something you want to maybe trigger to the user saying, hey, we know this anomaly in the behavior of the home. We think these settings should be in place. Do you agree or not? And try to help them, things like that.
That's interesting. So how do you interact then with the client? Because you're just processing, I'm assuming they're just shipping you the data. So you're not in the product itself.
No, so their application layer will go ask Nubo queries. Yes. Or pull new data sets from Nubo. Yeah. That their application will then take actions on. So we're not the ones who are going to go in the application and push this to the customer. Right. We're just providing the insights, the mathematical results of our algorithms for them to leverage in their application. And where are you getting these massive data sets in order to create these algorithms? So like if you onboard a new client, right, there has to be, do you have other data sets that you
have learned from that you can apply? And if it's a new vertical, is it just a matter of time for you to collect the amount of data that you need to develop those insights?
So the platform is building kind of a horizontal approach to deal with connected machines. So we've modeled over 150 different products on the platform that we can apply. Once we model the data, so we model the data based on different parameters of our client, and then we can apply all our algorithms to this model. For sure, there are specific insights that are to a vertical. So say in the agriculture space, if we're trying to predict the yield of tomatoes in a greenhouse, we're going to build a custom model for that client. But something like looking at churn and engagement and faults and usage, these are things that we can do across the board without writing any code, right? It's part of what we offer.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mix of both.
In terms of security, are you able to act as, I'm curious, like the IoT devices being hijacked for DDoS attacks, are you able to spot those kinds of anomalies and saying, hey, there's a lot happening here, but it's not related to...
So, I mean, we could track abnormal feeds of events from devices. So if your device is sending us 100 events a day, and suddenly you're getting 2,000, that would be an anomaly we would detect. We've never yet done, say, this is a hack.
Yeah.
Something we'd work towards.
It's okay, it goes, I think it's because of all the interference in the room.
Most of our insights are usually for different kind of use cases, but I think definitely something to look into moving forward.
Yeah, I just was wondering if that would be something you would even be given what your access to, if there's an application there to figure out like something squirrely is going on with this, this connected light bulb,
right?
That's generating just a massive amount of data. We don't, somebody's not sitting there flicking the switch back and forth, right?
No, I think something like that we could detect, tying it back to it's a IoT hack.
Yeah.
Not something we've experienced yet, but something. There are other kind of IoT security-driven companies that look into this stuff.
Yeah.
A bit less of a new boat focus.
Okay, sure, fair enough. And then, what do you think what's one bit of advice you can give to anybody who's watching right now? They're like, oh, I want to get into the space. Like, what are the 3 things that you tell like a potential client?
If it's a client that's not connected yet, we try to ask them first, like, don't just connect for the sake of connecting, right? There has to be value in the data you're going to generate for yourself or for your client. So kind of start at the data layer around, okay, I'm going to connect and get this data, what can I do with it? And if there's ROI there, then okay, go and connect. And then for clients that do have data that are connected, we don't like to do analytics just for the sake of doing analytics. So we really work with their business teams to define use cases, impact we have on product teams, on service teams, whatever that might be. And if we can define ROI opportunities there, then we can start an analytics engagement and help them monetize their data. But you got to start at the business value first, and then look at the data then to try to answer those questions for our clients.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jules. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Jules
Chris.
Perot.